Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Madam Undersecretary. Great to see you, and it's great to have you and our key representatives from AID here today. And thank you for your efforts both to provide much-needed humanitarian assistance as well as try to make the ceasefire hold so we can build on that. And I do want to start by thanking you and your colleagues at the State Department, Assistant Secretary Molly Fee, as well as the folks at the Consular Affairs divisions for helping get Americans out who wanted to get out, including every Marylander who has contacted our office who wanted to exit Sudan or have their relatives get out of Sudan, including an 89-year-old who escaped through the Egyptian border crossing. So I want to thank you because everyone we've heard from has been listened to and had their needs met. Let me just turn to the current state of the peace, the ceasefire negotiations. If you could talk a little bit more about the role of the UAE and Saudi Arabia here. I understand that Senator Coons referenced a trip that we took to Sudan in 2021, where we met with many of these players. I know there'll be more time to evaluate this as we go forward, but my takeaway from that trip, which we shared with folks at the State Department, is that we probably should have made a choice then to isolate Hamedi. That's my view. He's a war criminal. We know about his history in Darfur. And the fact that he was able to continue to assemble his power base in Sudan, which was already considerable, I think has contributed to the situation we're here now. Not that that would have been easy. It would have been hard. But I think we've seen what happened when he continued to play the role he has. But can you talk about the way forward? And then if you could also address the potential challenges in neighboring Ethiopia. I mean, we have a very fragile peace in Ethiopia. Obviously, there are some territorial disputes between Sudan and Ethiopia, and we need to be doing everything we can to make sure that the conflict in Sudan doesn't make the situation even worse in Ethiopia. So if you could address those questions.
First, Senator Van Hollen, it's great to hear that the consular system worked for your constituents and Marylanders. Very good to hear. We welcome any improvements, comments that you have about that system going forward, or any of the other members of this committee. And second, you missed our shout out to your diplomacy along with Senator Coons, which really made a big difference, your willingness to roll up your sleeves and talk to these difficult actors. So in this particular round in Jeddah, first of all, the Saudis are acting as hosts and have been instrumental to getting conversation at least going between these warring parties. Without that, it might not have happened at all. I will say that although, as you know better than many, the regional players, including the UAE, have their own economic interests and long-term ties to various parts of this. The UAE has been very constructive in this effort to get parties to Jeddah, to get the guns stopped, and to get these humanitarian routes going. And they have actually been pressuring both sides and sending strong messages. So we look forward to that continuing going forward and to staying in because it's going to take everybody to press on everybody. With regard to Ethiopia, I think you talked to Secretary Blinken after he came back from his trip, and we have had progress, as you know, implementing key elements of the November cessation of hostilities agreement, the COA, including formation of the Tigray Interim Regional Administration, withdrawal of Eritrean forces, and concurrent DPLF disarmament, the positive role that the African Union's monitoring mission is playing. And I will say, back on Sudan, we are working with the African Union on what we hope will be a large support and convening function that they will play if we can get to these larger talks that we talked about. these initial elements are beginning to bear fruit. Obviously, we've got continuing difficulties with some parts of Sudan, with Ethiopia. We've got to ensure that the government of Ethiopia continues to fulfill its commitment for unhindered access to humanitarian actors, for accountability, that it continues to meet its commitment for real justice, that journalists have safe access, that we continue to see good conversations with other constituent parts of Ethiopia, and that's what we're working on, and we appreciate your support for all of that.
Thank you. I hope we can, look, I think we're all incredibly disappointed that the hopes for democracy in Sudan have been hijacked here, and I know we all share the goal of trying to get it back on track, but we should look at some of the lessons learned for why it didn't happen the way we wanted the first time. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Scott.